you check the children? Show a little match sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes. That is what
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Horror Show. I'm Cecil Laird.
And I'm Davey Deathray.
And we are here to deliver on the promise of the spoiler discussion for the 2025 James Gunn reboot of the DC Universe with Superman. And this is making waves, this film already. We're recording this on Thursday, literally the Thursday that it drops for the very first time. So we are looking to drop this review either Saturday or Sunday of that opening weekend. So whichever day that ends up being, hi. But we wanted to give everyone at least a couple of days chance to see the movie before we drop the spoiler review. And, I think it's time for us to discuss those things that we tactfully avoided in our regular review. What do you say, Davey?
Yeah, let's do it.
Fantastic. So normally when I do spoiler stuff, we kind of just start at the beginning and continue on. So starting with the start of the movie, the text bit that we discussed in the non-spoiler live stream that I did with Davey, Lee, aka Drum Dums, Adam Does Movies, and Chris Stanley, of course. Some all-stars of YouTube. We all got together to discuss the Superman movie just tonight. And speaking of the spoiler stuff, the movie starts with text. Like, straight up. It's not like a flashback. It's not like a slow-motion origin story. We don't get any of that. It is literally just text that is told in increments of 3. 3 centuries ago, metahumans stepped foot on the earth. And then, 3 decades ago, this happened. And 3 months ago, this happened. And 3 hours ago, this happened. And 3 minutes ago, Superman lost his first fight for the very first time. And then we see Superman crash into Antarctica. That whole sequence that we saw in the majority of trailers leading up to the film was the very first couple of minutes of the movie, where he crash lands and Krypto takes him to the Fortress of Solitude and gets him repaired and all of that good stuff. But rewinding a little bit, Davey, what did you think of the text intro for the film?
I liked it. I thought it was cool that they used the 3s. I don't know if that is like purposely done to be kind of like is it supposed to be almost biblical? I know there's a bunch of,
like a specific Superman thing, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, there's a bunch of 3s like in the Bible, and then Superman, you can sort of think of him as a savior type character, like the last son of Krypton. So it's like, so there's that's kind of what it makes me think of. And I liked it. Yeah. 3 centuries, 3 decades, 3 years, 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 hours or whatever. Yeah. And I loved that as a way to just kind of get us going. I mean, it's true. We don't really need a huge drawn out origin. And especially with how much this movie has going on in it, like we really had to get going quickly.
Yeah, agreed. We had to step on the gas pretty rapidly. So, of course, we see everything that happened in the trailer. He whistles for Krypto. Krypto drags him to the Fortress of Solitude, which rises up out of the Antarctica floor. He gets pulled inside where his Superman robots are, they gather up to try and help him. And, we see Alan Tudyk playing number 4, who is sort of the lead Kryptonian robot. And he's number 4, and at one point they kind of toy with Superman naming him, and I really wish they would have name dropped Kelex, because Kelex is the number 1 robot assistant in the Fortress of Solitude in all the comics that I read from the 90s and beyond.
Gotcha.
All the robots in the comics of that era, the John Byrne era, and the Triangle era, they're floating yellow robots, and Kelex is the main one. So when I saw the image in the trailer of Superman on his knee, like holding the hand of one of the halved robots, I thought for sure that would be Kelex, but no, it ends up being number 4, which this is one of the things that I didn't understand. Like when he goes in, number 4 is stabbing himself with a freaking screwdriver.
You're
And
talking about at the end, yeah, after or in the middle, I guess. After the
after
attacks,
Lex
you
raids
know?
it and everything. I'm just
Yeah.
bringing it up because it occurred to me. So, I guess we'll get to that. But yeah, so he gets healed by the robots, and not only that, but while we're in there, we see that Superman has a comfort food, so to speak, or a comfort video where it's the not fully complete recording of his parents, Jor and Lara L. And we are shown, surprised to some, some people saw the news story, but Bradley Cooper is the one who is portraying Jor-El, which I loved. Like, I thought that was fucking awesome. I love that they had them speaking Kryptonian, but it was being translated. So, like, they created the Kryptonian language, and they are able to refer back to it. And I love when they do that kind of deep dive. And so, so that was really cool. And then Superman gets healed by the sun. He screams, and of course, the reason he screams is because his body parts are literally stitching back together in real time, which can't be an unpainful process.
Sure.
So yeah, this is everything we learn about Superman before we enter into his regular life. What did you think about this as an intro, Davey?
I dug it because, I mean, it's one of those things where a lot of people, or at least what I saw in the chat tonight, is everyone's kind of complaining that Superman just keeps on getting his ass kicked in this movie. And maybe that's because a first impression is very lasting. I mean, we start the movie off with a vulnerable character, but I think the way that they, weave the story together, we understand that, why he's able to be hurt by these, specific creatures or characters. And by the end of the movie, we'll get to that, but you extra know why he's having a tough time with the character that beat him up to begin with. So I think it's a good way to just show some, I mean, it also kind of sets up the theme of the movie that Superman is vulnerable, not only physically, but there's something going on in the real world as far as like his image goes and whether or not he's looked at as an appropriate member of the global society. So I think showing him physically vulnerable at the beginning is just sort of setting up that motif for the rest of the film, that he is at this stage in his superhero-dom. He's just vulnerable. And what I was surprised with the beginning is I was like, oh man, they basically already found him, because immediately after he's healed, he's at like 83% or whatever. He takes right off. He's like, I got to go finish this fight or whatever. And then I believe the character's name is Elizabeth, basically
engineer.
Or the engineer. Yeah. Sorry. Why did I think Elizabeth? Oh, just an E name, I guess. But yeah, she's been, a metahuman created by Lex essentially. And she's already scouting out the Fortress of Solitude. So that was the part that surprised me. I was like, oh crap, they're already like right on his heels and probably a few steps ahead of him, more than he knows for sure. So that's what I really liked about how the beginning was constructed there.
Sure. And for anyone that doesn't know, the engineer is actually one of the lead characters of The Authority. And so The Authority is one of the DC properties that when Gunn announced he was taking over, The Authority was one of the films that he was saying was going to be in production early on. Now, apparently, they have pretty much abandoned that idea, at least for the time being. And so that's probably why the engineer was in here instead. But it, quite frankly, it could have been any number of other characters, and it would have played out the exact same. So the engineer of it all is not the entertaining thing. But yeah, they learn pretty quick where the fortress is, but it disappears before they can do anything about it, at least at this point. So then we flash to the Daily Planet, and we see Clark in his work environment, and we see that he's got a friendly relationship with Jimmy Olsen, who is apparently a chick magnet, in spite of in spite of some people thinking he's kind of boy next door material. But there are women clearly pining for him. Even the male girls are pining for him, and so that's the angle they set up. But I like the actor that played Jimmy. He actually played Jimmy very well. This is absolutely a comic version of Jimmy. Jimmy actually changes from certain storylines to certain storylines. He's a lot more assertive in some, a lot less so in others. but this is definitely a version of Jimmy that I thought was good. We also briefly meet Perry White. The first time we see Jimmy and Perry is an interaction together where Perry's like, "Don't call me Chief," which is a thing. Jimmy calls him Chief, and he's always like, "Don't call me Chief," because it makes him feel old. So I love that they snuck that in like right at the beginning. But yeah, so then we meet Lois, and in my opinion, it's the best Lois we've ever gotten. And we get an allusion to the relationship. They don't necessarily play up that anything below the surface is there yet. It seems like it might just be a Clark Kent, Lois Lane relationship, but then we see in the very next scene that no, indeed, Clark and Lois have been seeing each other. She knows he's Superman, and that's the arena in which we're playing. And Lois kind of pokes fun at Clark for the fact that he has done numerous interviews with Superman, aka himself, which the subtext is Lois thinks that he's been softballing himself. Yeah. And so as a result, Clark's like, "Well, why don't you interview me?" And she's like, "Are you serious?" And he's just like, "Yeah, sure, we'll do that." Clark doesn't realize how serious it's going to get. And so that's where the scene from the trailer comes in, where there's the very contentious back and forth where Clark is just saying, "Look, I was just trying to save human lives." And Lois is like, "But what about the political implications?" He's like, "There were no political implications," essentially, is what happens, right? But I like that it actually sets up a place for Clark to grow from, you know? Yeah. He is a bit naive in his outlook on everything. There's nuance to every world conflict, of course. Yeah. And so I like that. That is the thing that I think you were most alluding to, if I'm not mistaken, in the review about being similar to Man of Steel, is the whole Superman taking part in like foreign stuff.
Yeah, I think there's that. There's like giving himself up to the government. So going through it happens differently in this film, but in Man of Steel, he actually goes through a questioning process and everything like that. In this film, it's basically just taken away to be a prisoner by Lex. But then also, I do think there's some, and we'll get to this when we talk about the third act of the film, but. There's no way that people aren't dying in Metropolis when the ground is literally split and buildings are being torn apart. There's no way they got everyone out of Metropolis.
Well, that's the thing. They're trying to say that it was evacuated. Right.
Well, and I ain't buying that. So, those elements, I'm like, well, there are people dying here and things are very serious. And Lex straight up blows a dude's brains out, like in front of Superman. So there's some things in there where I was like, this movie is... And I think it works for Snyder fans and it works for gun fans, and it is maybe a lesson moving forward. And not that I expect people to learn a lot, or at least the people that engage in crazy stuff on social media, because I think it's one of those things where it's like, guys, we really got to wait sometimes until we see the movie, because we might find that things are like just a little bit closer than what we thought, and they're not as polarizing. And maybe that's a lesson even outside of film. But yeah, I was certainly, alluding to some of those more serious elements, in our non-spoiler review. And I think, yeah, this is a great moment for, first off, just to go back to Jimmy Olsen really quick. Apparently, this is the same guy that played the kid that played Tommy Doyle in Rob Zombie's Halloween, the little kid.
Oh, I didn't realize.
This is him all grown up, which is just a wild connection. Yes, Rachel Brosnahan is absolutely like mesmerizing and tractor beam. And it's not just the fact that she is beautiful, which she is. There is something about her performance and her looks. Certain actors just have something that pull you in, and I think she's one of them. And I think she's got like the Spitfire kind of element that you want to see in a Lois Lane. And yeah, she's like, everyone's ribbing Clark about his writing, just the prowess of his writing, just the way he structures sentences. They're giving him a tough time. Then she jumps in to sort of give him that sly tough time about like, wow, how do you get these interviews? And little do we know at that time that she knows full well. So I think there's something really cool about that relationship dynamic that Lois is trying to say, like, look, I'm on your side, but take a step back and actually like think about how this looks. Like, if you're flying a president into a desert and throwing him against a cactus, like, what does that look like to everyone? Like, are you giving the people that say negative things about you, are you giving them ammo? And so it's not something that is just like seeded and grows right there in that moment, but it's something that definitely grows throughout the film. And there's a really nice arc here with Clark and Superman because of moments like this.
Yeah. And it also shows that, his relationship with Lois is still evolving as well.
Just 3 months in, and she already knows. Oh my gosh, Clark,
Yeah.
what are you doing?
Well,
Thinking
but she is like, that's the thing. Like, that's what always bothered a lot of people about the fact that Lois is supposed to be this super intelligent investigative reporter, and yet she never saw through the glasses, which, by the way, they gave a reason for that sort of thing. They basically said that Superman, or that Clark, wears hypno glasses, which actually makes people not realize that he's Superman. So, like, the whole idea of, like, oh, it's so stupid that glasses, make people not see him. It's like, well, it's because they're hypno glasses. So, like, there's a gimmick there. So it's a fun throwaway thing. But yeah, we meet everyone at the planet, including Perry and Jimmy and Lois, and we also meet Steve Lombard, the sports guy, and Cat Grant, the vapid sort of beauty person.
Oh my goodness!
Yowza. Yeah. Cat Grant is always always the sex pot of the Superman Daily Planet world, but she also is involved in one of the most poignant Superman stories of all time. It's a very particular issue. I don't know. I can't remember exactly which title it was, whether it was Adventures, Action Comics, Superman, or Man of Steel. But there's one issue where Cat Grant's son is kidnapped by the Toyman, and Superman goes to save him, but he ends up being too late, and Toyman kills Cat Grant's son. And like, the cover is this aggressive cover where Superman is holding Cat Grant's son's body, and he's like crying out in, like, literally tears streaming down his face, and you just see the silhouette of Toyman like lording over them in the background.
Damn,
so fucking cool. Like, so, like, I look at Cat and I'm like, dude, that's, as vapid as they're making her seem, they can really do a great side story if they fucking do that shit. So yeah, so, like, I see nothing but potential in all this stuff. And so, yeah, we see that Clark, Clark basically agrees to let Lois interview him, and so that's when we skip to when it doesn't go well. He's just basically like, I'm out of here. Yeah, that's the thing.
Like, I told you I wasn't good at this, and then he just, like, walks out. He doesn't even say goodbye. He doesn't
say goodbye or sorry or anything. It's just a contentious thing. Yeah, because they do this interview, and Clark thinks it's going to go great, but Lois is actually like a Spitfire, like you said, and she does her job. She does her due diligence and asks the questions that the people would want answers to. Clark's not prepared for that. And so it kind of goes downhill, and they splinter off, and then Clark, then we move in. Where did it go from there, Davey? What happened after that point?
Well, I think at this point is where we learn that Lex is directly involved with the conflict that Lois and Clark were talking about. So there are a couple made-up countries, one country wanting to invade the other in the Middle East. And, we find out, although not everyone in the story knows this at this point, but Lex is directly involved, and he's essentially using it as, like, a way to paint Superman in a bad way and a way to just gain more power. So we find out later on in the story he's going to take half of this country and wants to become king and all this stuff, but we're just getting little breadcrumbs of this part of the story. And another weird thing that we learn about Lex that plays on throughout the movie is this kind of like a video game sort of way of fighting Superman by calling out moves. That was, like, one of the things that I didn't want to say in the non-spoiler, because I think it does, like, dive in a little deeper. It's one of the things that didn't work for me as much, and especially in the third act, I was like, okay, this really is like kids playing a video game. But yeah, anyways, we find out that not only is he working directly with the leader of the antagonist nation, but he's set up this, like, what do they call it? It's like this in-between kind of universe. The pocket universe. So we find out that that's how he's, like, kind of like teleporting and having secret meetings, and we find out he's got a secret prison there. And I'm trying to think exactly where the plot goes from there, because I know we got that little kaiju monster.
Yeah, so
as a distraction. I think that's, like, pretty soon after.
So yeah, Lex is trying. That's the distraction he uses to go and break into the fortress.
Yes.
So Lex releases a little baby kaiju, his henchmen release a little baby kaiju that by the time morning, like they release it in the middle of the night, and by the time morning comes around, it's this giant, carnage causing kaiju, and Superman has to fight it. Meanwhile, Lex and the engineer and Eve Tessmacher, they return to the fortress, and Ultraman as well, and they're able to access the fortress, and the Ultraman and the engineer decimate all of the Superman robots, the Superman assistant robots, and Clark, and Luthor. Rather, the engineer gets access to the hologram, the message from Clark's parents, and we learn early on that Clark watches this message daily almost in order to make himself feel better because his parents aren't around anymore. But there's always been a portion of the message that has been corrupted and he's never been able to see. And so when the engineer and Lex enter, they're literally looking for any information that they can use to paint Superman in a bad light. And the engineer finds this information, and so that's the crux of the rest of the story. They're trying to frame Superman for this information that they quote-unquote found, and he has to disprove its validity and whatnot. And so, yeah, that's where it starts to get a bit convoluted because Gunn tries to do a lot of stuff.
And I thought that scene was pretty effective and pretty I don't know, I felt bad for the robots, and they're just robots. But the way that they were just literally being their insides being ripped out, by Ultraman, and I thought that was a lot more visceral and tough to watch compared to what the engineer does. But what the engineer ends up doing to Krypto, covering his face with the nanites and all that stuff. There's some, there's moments where you're like, oh my God, Krypto, which I really enjoyed Krypto. I know a lot of people were talking smack about Krypto in the chat earlier, and we haven't really talked about him yet, really. But I thought it was something that I didn't think was just there for the kids. I thought it just brought another layer and something we haven't seen. I like when these movies do something different that we haven't seen. I'm always a fan for that, especially if it works. And the engineer is sort of there's something reminiscent of the Sentinels in Days of Future Past, that melding ability, but then also being able to just completely infiltrate the computer. And I guess that's one of the big. I think that's one of the things that you were talking about earlier in the stream about one of the decisions with the changing the lore. That was one of the things that kind of tripped you up with, with Superman's parents and the message, because one of the reasons why it makes him feel comfort is because they're basically you're the last son of our planet and we're sending you to this planet to, he interprets it because the message is cut off. It's oh, you're sent to this planet because you're so powerful, you're going to help these people and you're going to be a force for good and force for positive change. And it ends up not being that, but I'll toss that back to you, Cecil.
Yeah, so that's the real controversial decision where when Lex and the engineer get in there and the engineer actually starts to infiltrate the computer systems, she's able to fix the corrupted footage, which then continues, and we don't see exactly what it says, but then later, after Superman defeats the kaiju, all of these, there's the end of what is it, Spider-Man Far From Home moment where Spider-Man gets revealed and he's looking around what? And it's the same thing here where they've just defeated the kaiju and suddenly the news story releases that Superman, what's the news story? I had a point I was driving towards, and
it's basically it's the footage. Lex is on. It's Michael Ian Black plays this news character that I'm guessing is supposed to be a Tucker Carlson kind of guy.
Tucker Carlson,
or whatever.
Kind of Piers Morgan at this point.
Little bit, yeah. So he's got. It was, by the way, it was really cool to see Michael Ian Black do that.
He's so funny. He's a great comedian.
Yeah, and he's always so absurd and over the top, so it was interesting to see him do it didn't even really sound like him, the voice he was putting on. But yeah, Lex is basically releasing the footage and sort of playing it up look guys, I'm just worried. I'm worried for all of us. That's the angle he's playing, because the message essentially says that, Superman's parents want him to rule the entire planet like a king, have a harem all over the world and repopulate it and basically make it new Krypton. And so Superman's learning this as everyone else is learning it, but it's being spun as if this has been Superman's ploy.
Right.
Yeah, that he's the one with the diabolical plan, and because Lex is ahead of the game, you know, a few steps ahead, he's able to spin it however he wants. So
and even Lois doesn't know for sure, you know, what his motivations are either. Like that's what they play up, you know. Nobody know. Like Clark doesn't know who believes in him and everything. Yeah, the Justice Gang are ready to turn against him and stuff.
Yeah, because they show up to help fight the kaiju. So that's when we meet, you know, Mr. Terrific and Hot Girl and
Guy Gardner, baby.
And so even they are like, well, what the hell, dude? And it doesn't seem like they really. Like those three are a team. It doesn't seem like it seems like they've worked together with Superman.
Oh no, Superman's
truly
not part
is
of the
his own
Justice
entity.
Gang yet. No,
yeah,
no,
but
he's
like
not.
they fight on the same side, but they're not. There's not like a real agreement there,
right.
other than that they'll be friendly with each other. But yeah, so even those guys are like, the hell is this? You know, and especially because Guy is, you know, of all the versions of Green Lantern, at least you know what I know about them. I know he's, you know, the most like brash and cocky of them all.
Yeah, the most obnoxious of them all.
He's totally willing to get right up in Superman's face about it. So
Guy is really cool though. His story, like again, I was a collector in the mid '90s, which is when they were dramatically altering a lot of characters. Guy was a Green Lantern until he discovers this alien race that is like a shape-shifting race that he gets infected by, and he becomes Guy Gardner Warrior, where he's able to like change his anatomy and like form his arms into massive energy guns, energy cannons and shit. Like,
oh geez,
it's so cool. Like I love what they did with Guy in the 90s, but yeah, other than that, he's just the most brash, annoying, like shitty, overconfident Green Lantern that there is, that you just kind of love for being such a dick. And it becomes like an ongoing joke. Like he constantly gives Batman shit, and at one point he talks too much shit and Batman knocks him out in one punch, and it becomes an ongoing thing in the DC universe where they just, anytime Guy gets bigger than his britches, they just go, one punch, Guy. And he's just like, shut up, you know? And so it's, so I loved Guy Gardner's portrayal. I think Hawk Girl had the least to do.
Yeah.
But otherwise, yeah, we meet the Justice Gang, and they take down the kaiju, and it's really leaned on that Superman is not the Avengers because he's hyper focused on saving people. He doesn't even let the kaiju fall into a giant building. You know, he saves everyone doing that, which is really focused on for a few minutes. And I greatly appreciated that, because Zack Snyder was like, fuck you, people are dying. Like,
it's way different.
Superman don't give a shit. And it's like, no, that's just not the case. Like in this, he did so well, because Superman, even when he's in a fight, if he gets punched, he'll look behind him to make sure his trajectory is not through a fucking skyscraper full of people. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's the tact that that Gunn took for most of fights in this, and I dug it for that.
Yeah, he saves a lot of. I mean, he saves people. He saves that squirrel. He saves a dog. Like, there's all sorts of moments there where he's showing care, and even beyond that,
he's a big Blake Snyder fan.
He didn't want to kill.
That's a screenwriter joke for anyone that's into that.
He didn't want to kill the kaiju. Really, he wanted to take it to just some place where it could, you know, not hurt anyone.
He told him, he's like, couldn't we have gotten rid of it? You know, couldn't we have sent it on an interstellar journey, or at the very least, couldn't we have euthanized it in a more peaceful way? And like, I love that though. That is so emblematic of Superman. And like, they finally got that right. Zack Snyder's Superman wouldn't have given a shit. He would have flown through that fucker's heart himself.
Well, and that's why I was kind of like waiting. I was like, is Superman just gonna like fly through this thing's like mouth and just like bust out the other end? But
in Snyder's world, yes.
Yeah.
Not in this one though. Like that's the thing. Literally in the comics, Superman keeps an interstellar zoo at the Fortress of Solitude. Yeah. Anytime that he fights these creatures, he literally takes them back and puts them in this massive under ice zoo that he has, that like is chock full of creatures that he's fought over the years, because he refuses to kill them.
Yeah, and I think that's what he even mentions when he suggests that to Guy, like once they've, you know, taken it down. And yeah, I mean, like, so so right after all that happens is when the news comes out about the true message from his parents. And he's just kind of like, he's put up with it for, he's tired of dealing with Guy. And then he realizes like, oh crap, like they're like, where would they get this information? And that's where he realizes, oh, it's only in the fortress. So he just like bolts right off, like flies right to the Fortress of Solitude within like a minute or whatever. And discovers everything that happened there and finds
Which is
out
great, by the way. That scene when he flies to the fortress is so dope because they keep the angle straight on his face and he flies through like 3 or 4 different climates. And like so he goes from like sun to rain to clouds, and like it's so fucking cool to see. We've never seen that before.
Yeah, and I would say like most of the flying here I really enjoyed. There were some of those head-on shots, not every single one. I don't know if it's the lens they're using that just made it look weird
too, to be honest.
But I do think, just really quick, like I thought the effects like overall looked really good, a lot better than what they looked like in the trailers and everything. So I was pleased to see that. But yeah, when he shows up to the fortress and it's just, he sees the destruction, realizes Crypto isn't there, and I'm pretty sure that's what leads us to his very first meeting.
Well, before that happens, he has that doesn't he have that confrontation with the Justice Gang in the would-be watchtower beforehand?
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Is when that's why I was like, he's tired of dealing with Guy's shit because Guy gets right in his face.
That's a great scene. I love that scene.
Calls him Big Blue and everything.
He calls him Big Blue, and they set up a lot of stuff and. You get a good dose of Guy Gardner there. So I thought that was great. And so they're buying into him, and let's see what's after that.
Well, they don't really know. They're like, what's going on with that message? And they're like, is it real? And Mr. Terrific's like, there's no way to fake this message. Like, this message
skeptical, is
real because Mr. Terrific knows what's up. And because he's so tech savvy and all that stuff. And Superman's like, look, I know it's tough to believe, but I only heard like one part of this message, and this is what I thought it was supposed to mean. And Guy accuses him of having a harem and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's really fun. He's like, you have a harem, man? And he's like, well, I don't have a harem. Like, so, some of the reactions in this movie are pretty great like that. And that leads Soups to the fortress, and then of course to Lex to look for Crypto.
Yeah, he gets back to the fortress post raid and finds all the busted up Kryptonian robots that he's built. And actually, we don't even know if they're Kryptonian or not, but they're there to serve Superman. And he flies off and tries to confront Lex, saying, "Where's the dog?" It's "Where's the trigger?" But that whole scene happens, and that I didn't bump into it as hard because in context versus in the trailer, it fits a lot better in my opinion. So I did dig that. But it leads to. Is that what leads to the final confrontation? All that stuff.
Well, so basically,
you're fresher than me, so forgive me. You got to kind of lead this ship.
Of course, I got you. So that is just if you've seen that clip that was shown on the talk shows and all that stuff, it's that confrontation is also where Lex's girlfriend Eve she's like live streaming the whole thing. So it's another great play by Lex to just to piggyback on everything he's been putting together of you shouldn't trust this guy. He's a loose cannon. He's acting unilaterally and all this stuff. And then, of course, with that emotional, the connection that Superman has with Crypto, he's just like incredibly emotional. It's all caught on camera. It doesn't look good. It seems to back up everything that was on that, video from the parents, that message and all that. And that is what, essentially, I think from there, Superman flies into his own apartment, sits down on the chair. The Justice Squad or Justice Gang, or they're fighting some interdimensional demon that they don't need him for.
Literally see a giant green Louisville Slugger like smashing shit in the background. It's
pretty hilarious. It's like a Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 monster just floating in the sky.
For sure.
And he's bumming out, and Lois is there, and she's supportive and awesome, and she's like, "Look, I didn't believe, for a sec, like, because he's like, I don't have a harem, like, I don't, she's like, I didn't believe that for a second, and." She knows what kind of guy he is, and he's basically at that point where he's like, I gotta go turn myself in, because like there's no other way to show them that I'm not, what Lex is saying that I am.
Right.
And they have a great, just to touch again on the romance, I think it was done really well. You rarely see couples kissing, couples kissing, and it's refreshing. Like they really do have
too. Like
yeah,
that
a lot.
first makeout session is aggressive.
Yeah, and it's a really good. There's really good chemistry between Rachel Brosnahan and David Cornsweet. And I haven't said this yet. I guess it's kind of obvious, or a lot of people are saying it, but I do think that David Cornsweet is a really damn good Superman. We don't get as much of Clark here as we do of Superman. We get some Clark, but he's really good throughout the entire film. And he tells her for the first time that he loves her before he flies off. And it's this cool kind of bounce back and forth. When they had their fight after the interview, he just left. He didn't say anything. Now he's about to leave to turn himself in. He says, "I love you." She doesn't say it back. And then later on, we're gonna get the payoff where she does say it back,
right?
Which Lee said he didn't get any goosebumps. I got lots of goosebumps watching this movie, which is one of the reasons why I really liked it. There were a lot of moments where I was like, "This is just so cool to see." So yeah,
I had the same feelings, honestly. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just so many different moments, and this was one of them, and we'll get to a couple of the others. But yeah, from there he turns himself in. And it's not even the like U.S. government that arrests him. It's Lex's like peacemakers or whatever they're. It's not the peacemaker, because that's John Cena who's in this movie.
It's Super Ice.
And so he's still like manhandled, even though he's coming in of his own accord. And that's where we find out that Lex has this secret prison, kind of like this cabin in the woods.
Very much so.
Of characters
in a pocket dimension. Which is a, possibly reality destroying event every time they open a portal to get there. So I do love the subtext of that being that Lex cares so little about the safety of the universe itself as long as he kills Superman. Like it's really under the hood, it's disturbing shit.
And you realize how much he's been using this thing. I mean, there's like hundreds of people in this prison, or hundreds of people, creatures, whatever it is. And they just use it casually to have like meetings and give donuts to dictators, so that is another thing that I'm just now realizing too. Yeah. He just uses it as like a plaything, and anytime it could create a black hole.
Right. Yeah.
And so so when I don't know how much you want me to keep on going here, Cecil.
No, I wouldn't mind you just taking the reins as far as the order of operations, because you literally walked out of it a couple of hours ago. So
okay, yeah. So from there, Superman gets put into a cell with Metamorpho, right?
We get introduced to Rex Mason. He's never name checked necessarily, but he is Metamorpho, and the reason Lex has him is because Metamorpho is the Element Man, which means he's able to produce and change himself into any element on the periodic table. So that's kind of his thing. He can turn into to gaseous vapor, amongst other things. He can redraw his own genetic code based on any number of different factors, and so Lex, we're told early on in the initial text that all kryptonite has been taken away from the planet. And so Lex says, "I have a way around that," and so we learn that this is his way around it, because Metamorpho is able to actually create. He's able to transmute his hand into a block of kryptonite in order to keep Superman docile and unable to do anything to rescue anyone, let alone rescue who we find out is Metamorpho's infant son. And Metamorpho is played by Anthony Carrigan, who was, a lead character in The Barry Show, amongst other things. And he was awesome as Metamorpho. Because Metamorpho, at one point, he helps Superman leave. Like he gets rid of the kryptonite and ends up making like a mini sun to recharge Superman. And I know this is a bit out of order, but Superman busts his way out of the cage and he lets he goes and busts his way into the cage where a Lex general goon really, that's the best way to put it. A Lex goon is holding Metamorpho's baby, and Superman flies in through the glass wall and like knocks the goon out and grabs the baby and meets Metamorpho kind of halfway back.
It's so wild what Lex is doing to this guy. It's like, it's even worse than that because it's right across the way. So all day this guy's got to sit in a cage and just look at his son basically being held by this guy that could kill his son at any minute if he doesn't do what Lex wants him to do. So it's this you get a sense of like, this is such a heartbreaking, conundrum for Metamorpho. And it's, so there's that kind of heartbreaking nonsense or craziness. And then there's the nonsense of like, Lex puts his ex-girlfriends in there. Or anyone that just somebody that wrote an article about him that he didn't like. Yeah. So he's got this like Kim Jong-un kind of thing, just like straight up hardcore dictator, even though he doesn't have a country yet, right? So that's the whole kind of vibe that you're picking up from Lex, is that he really knows no bounds. And I think one thing that we missed really quick, he tried to work with the government in a way of, massaging them verbally to get to let them go after, or let him go after Superman. It didn't work, and that's why he really, started getting the gears going. But yeah, he's got Superman held captive, and he brings one of, just basically a person from Metropolis that Superman
has shown favor to.
Yeah, and the guy like gave him some free food, at some point or whatever. So it's just this really casual thing, but he's basically like, I'm going to kill this guy if you don't give me the information that I want. And it's a really crazy like Russian roulette kind of scene that is, I thought, like, I gotta say it, for how people are saying that this is like a cartoon, and a lot of it is like relatively light. This is a pretty dark moment right here. And although we don't see it very close up, like, we see Lex, shoot a guy right in the head, point blank.
Yeah, and it wrecks Superman. Like, he immediately screams out and is crying, which I loved because, again, it at least shows the humanity behind the superhuman. And he's like, he didn't deserve it, that what the fuck, essentially. And I was surprised because, Lex was doing a Russian roulette thing, and it was only like the second or third trigger pull. And like, it even caught Lex off guard. He's like, oh, damn, that was too fast, kind of thing, Yep. And so it definitely has its effective moments in that stretch. And
then Metamorpho
So Superman breaks out and flies directly across, knocks out the goon, and grabs Metamorpho's baby, returns him to Metamorpho, but Metamorpho ends up having to help Superman escape this pocket dimension while Mr. Terrific and Lois, back up at the surface level, have located, the gate and have gone inside to try and lure their lost people back to them and back to their reality and stuff. And so,
and I really liked all of that whole, like, because Lois goes to the Hall of Justice, which is in construction. I didn't expect to see that. I thought that was kind of cool.
Right.
And she's basically trying to convince them, like, like, I know who Superman is. I'm here to help. Like, I need you guys to help me. And Mr. Terrific is the only one out of the three that even cares at all.
Yeah.
And so you get some really good, that's why I don't think these characters stole the show, but I was like really surprised at how much action we got from Mr. Terrific and from Lois. And it's a really cool little side quest they go on. Yeah. Even though I didn't like the song that James Gunn picked for that fight scene, the fight scene sequence, visually, that was really cool. And for a person like me that doesn't know anything about Mr. Terrific, you get to learn a lot about the character, like his personality.
His T-spheres are dope.
Yeah, the T-spheres are really cool. And then he's got this, like, I kind of don't give a fuck, but I'm really cool, and I'm not like a total jerk, but don't bug me with dumb stuff because I'm crazy intelligent and really good at all this computer stuff. So those are the things you get. These characters are all really well defined. And I really liked seeing Lois like get involved. Yeah. And like, that's one of my favorite parts about her character is she doesn't just sit back and do journalism girlfriend stuff.
Yeah.
She's a regular human, and she's putting herself in a very dangerous situation.
Well, not only that, but, people may be questioning why she's able to fly Mr. Terrific's ship right out of the gate. Well, A, he says it's very intuitive, and B, a lot of people don't realize that Lois is the daughter of an army general, Sam Lane, and he raised her to take care of herself in numerous different situations. And so that's part of why Lois is such a successful reporter, is because she's willing to go into battle zones and across enemy lines to get the story and everything. And so I feel like they did a really good job of portraying that version of Lois here.
Yeah, and you can tell that Mr. Terrific doesn't think very highly of her intelligence level, just the way he kind of gives her shit. So if he says it's intuitive and he's willing to let her, within the confines of the story, it absolutely works. And it does look pretty easy. It's just a couple levers, so no big deal. That whole action sequence of the breakout was really, really intense. There are moments here. I know some people are like, "Oh, I've never worried about Superman getting hurt. He's impervious. All this kind of. I never worry about it." To me, I felt like there were a lot of moments in this movie where I was worried, maybe not so much about him, but like the other characters around him. Like he's trying to protect this guy's. Metamorpho can't hold him and use his powers, so Superman has to carry him throughout this crazy action sequence.
Well, he carries the baby. Metamorpho
says,
I can't help and carry the baby. So
so he has to carry the baby. Krypto. Superman's broken Krypto out of his little cage because Lex is like plugged. This is captured Krypto, hooks his brain up to a thing where he's just flying and chasing squirrels. It's just this really weird kind of demented, perverted thing that Lex does. Not sexually perverted. Come on, get your head out of the gutter. But Superman breaks him out, and it's a really interesting, kind of floating down a river, like this digital river kind of action scene. Closer and closer to a black hole. It's at that point where Metamorpho turns himself into acid and blows up all over the guy, a lot
of different things. That's the thing. He's the element man, so he can change himself into anything on the periodic table. He goes to gaseous form. He can have a liquid form. He can have a semi, put together solid form, and he's got a squid form and everything. And he ultimately helps Superman rescue his baby back, and pulls Superman out of I forgot what kind of stream they called it, but the weird thing is this, right? So Superman's he makes us think that anyone that gets into the black hole is going to be dead and unretrievable. And yet when he gets there, he just goes, and it blows him out of the black hole. So it's later on when he's in a similar situation, it's just do that again. So it's a little inconsistent in that way, but overall I had a great time with it, and I have not that many hang-ups, so to speak.
And I mean, I thought that action set piece was one of the more interesting ones, and then after that, I mean, we get Superman, of course, they end up escaping. They get out of the I've already forgot the name of the universe. What is it called?
The Pocket Universe. The
Pocket Universe, yes. So they get out of that, but Superman's got the kryptonite poisoning, so he's got to go. They got to go visit Ma and Pa Kent. Yeah. So we get a nice scene on the farm with Ma and Pa, who we see briefly at the beginning of the movie, and a little bit of a comedic scene about older people not understanding technology. But here we get some nicer moments. Lois gets to look around his bedroom and see the cheesy bands that he listened to growing up. And this was one of those goosebump moments for me.
Great character moment.
Yeah, I thought it was sweet that she gets to see a little bit about what Clark was like before she met him. She gets to see more of that humanity, even more of that humanity than she's seen before.
And it to that point, he's got a mighty crab trees or some shit, crab joys.
Yeah, it's these made up bands.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they're made up or not. I think they might actually be real punk bands.
I think they made them up and like I mean I'm into punk rock. I've never heard of these bands.
Okay.
And then they have like a Mighty Crabs or whatever song at the end, but I'm pretty sure it's sort of like they've created it. But yeah, because Lois and Clark have this conversation. She's like, I grew up all punk rock and tough, and he's like, I grew up punk rock, and she's like, you listen to like mainstream crap, they suck. Like that was a conversation that kind of cracked me up because I've had those conversations in my life.
I loved that conversation, and that conversation, the end of that conversation is one of the things that almost brought me to tears, just because it was getting the character so right, where she's like, punk, she's like, what are you talking about? You save people and you're focused on this and that. And he's just like, that's punk rock. And like, it's just like,
see everyone as beautiful.
Yeah. And I love that, because that is true. Like now, like punk rock has always been the outsiders, right? And like, unfortunately nowadays the outsiders are the just randomly nice people. Like being nice and seeing the beauty in people, that's the odd man out nowadays. That's the punk rock. I loved that line so much. He's like, well, that's punk rock. Like I was like, yes, Superman would think that being kind is punk rock. That's so
it's like
fucking good.
Being unapologetically yourself and and not having to justify like, the parts of you that are the most you. I think that's kind of a punk rock sort of way. It's not just not giving a fuck about anything. It's really like not giving a fuck about people telling you what you should and shouldn't be, to follow your own compass. And that, I mean, that's what I picked up from that scene for sure. And that ties in beautifully with the Ma and Pa Kent scene, because we have a really that awesome moment where Clark is recovering and eating some cereal on the on the
front porch.
Yeah, and it's just a really cool, like regular, like Chris said in the stream earlier today. It's like you just feel like he's just a dude, and it is a really nice moment of him just being regular. I kind of like seeing, some people may say mundane. I kind of like seeing some mundane moments because it really lets me sit with the character.
It's without the bad, the good, like without the sour, the sweet wouldn't be as sweet. Yeah. That's what they say, right? So, yeah.
It can't all be Superman fighting kaiju and all that kind of stuff. And I think this is like the turning point for me of the story, and especially of Clark and Superman's character arc, because he's really doubting himself. He has been getting not only his butt kicked physically, but he's been getting outplayed, like intellectually speaking as well.
Yeah.
And, he has a really good moment with, with Jonathan Kent, where he's basically like, my whole life is a lie because I know what this message really is. And like, my parents aren't who, like my biological parents aren't who I thought they were. And like, who am I? And there's this beautiful moment where Jonathan's basically like,
it's like, he says it's not a parent's job to tell their kid what to do. It's their job to give them the tools to be able to determine that themselves. And
make mistakes and screw up and make a fool of themselves, all that kind of stuff. And like, and he tells him that he's so proud of him.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's what he catches on his voice. He's like, just so proud of you. And he like catches when he says it, and it's so fucking genuine. And yeah, Pruitt does an amazing job delivering the line, and it made me tear up. Like, I teared up at a few things. I did tear up the first time I saw Jor and Lara, because I love when they're portrayed great, and then that's why the lore change pissed me off. Because they have done that in Superman comics in the past, and it has ended up being like miscommunication in most times, but that's not a new thing, where it's like, no, they purposely sent me here because I'd be able to rule.
That's in Smallville they did the same thing. When he sees his dad in the cave or whatever, and his dad's like, yeah, you're supposed to be king of the world. And so it's a really great reminder in this moment of Clark just kind of coming to that realization of like, oh yeah, like I am, this doesn't change who I am.
Right.
And like, these people are my real parents kind of moment too, where he has that realization. And that's right when the shit is really hitting the fan. Lex has turned back on that portal that was basically imploded on itself when Superman came back through.
Yeah, when they
and
brought
that
him
is
out.
Yeah, and it's creating this tear and essentially slowly opening up this black hole that is like literally ripping the world in half, or seemingly will if they don't stop.
And not only that, but somehow Lex's team has the off switch. Like literally, they have a code they can enter to stop the fucking divide. But this is part of actually one of the things I liked about Lex is once it got to that point, he's like. They're like, no, you're gonna possibly destroy the world, but at the very least, you're gonna destroy all of Metropolis and kill everyone there. And he's just like, fuck it, fine, that's fine. I hate the city anyway. And like,
they chose him. He says they chose him.
Yeah, I love that. Like, I thought that was so good.
Yeah,
that
he's
is
so petty.
Lex. Yeah, so petty. So I love that, but. After Superman prevails, and I'm jumping ahead just a little bit, but this is the thing that I alluded to during the non-spoiler review. Superman goes and confronts Lex in his base of operations, and Lex is like, he has tears, rolling down his face. And everything else was perfect about Lex, but that. Because Lex would Lex would die before letting Superman see the weakness that would cause him to cry. Lex would never, ever let a tear escape his eye in front of Superman that way.
I thought that was odd too, and I'm not even as familiar with everything, but I was like, I'm cool with seeing Superman cry and seeing Metamorpho cry and all that stuff. I'm like, I'm very surprised they're letting Lex cry here.
Lex shouldn't cry until the redemption arc in movie 3 or 4 before he dies. Like making up for all of the sins against Superman that he's done over the first 3 or 4 films. Like that's really the way to do it. But for now, this is kind of what we get. And there's so much to discuss, but there's so much good and so much that's like kind of questionable, but I still loved it and I loved the decisions, but I didn't love all the decisions. Again, besides Lex crying, there was one other big thing, and that was changing the lore of Jor-El and Lara, saying that he was actually meant to rule the world. But like, considering it's a 2+ hour movie and those are the only 2 issues that I bumped into, I feel like it's a major success.
I thought so too. I liked how, in the third act, like the war gets kicked off again in the Middle East. They push the button back on that. Like, Lex makes that happen. And the kids, when they raised the Superman flag, that was like a goosebump moment for me. Love for that. Sure.
Superman.
Yeah. I was like, this is great. I wanted him to show up and help out. We see the Justice Gang show up. It is very, very truncated.
He's like, Superman's not going to make it, kid. He's like, but you got something better. I was like, that's
you got an upgrade.
Yeah, you got an upgrade.
He flips over some tanks, and that's pretty much all you see, unfortunately. Hopefully, when it comes to, Blu-ray and all that stuff, we get some more action from that. But yeah, I mean, I really liked the confrontation there with Superman and Lex, because Lex is basically making a beeline. He's got a portal in his little aircraft or whatever, and Superman knocks him on his ass, and I thought that was a great moment there where Lex is like, calls him an alien, and Superman finally just has like that's sort of the moment where it's like he really is just himself, because he stops like worrying. He has his punk rock moment of stop worrying about what everyone thinks, and he's like, you see, Lex, that's what you always get wrong. And it's just this really good, I'm like, oh, I love this. Like a great performance by David Corenswet of delivering the classic. Like I've seen it in multiple like old school, I don't know if they're Silver Age comics, I would imagine so, where Superman like is pretty much looking at the screen saying like, that's what makes me so human, is that I do make mistakes, and that I have flaws, and I have good days and bad days and all this kind of stuff. And he just sort of like gives Lex the business that way, after defeating all of his machinations and everything. And so I thought that was a really satisfying, ending to at least their confrontation here. I can't remember.
And Lex ultimately
after
gets
that, or does he cry after Krypto beats him up and breaks his arm?
No, I think he cries after that. Yeah. I think he does.
Krypto kicks his ass.
Yeah, he does. And it's kind of funny. It's like the reverse Hulk kind of moment. But as far as Hulk and Loki kind of situation.
The
reverse version of that. But yeah, that's also where we see that one of Lex's assistants is Otis, who was also in the original Donner films as one of Lex's henchmen, called Otis. So that was fun.
Oh, okay. I must have just totally missed that.
Yeah, Otis is the big dude in the original, and Otis was the larger black dude, the older black dude in the control center. He even calls him Otis at one point. So I was like, oh, cool.
I liked how some of Lex's people, the one guy with the mustache was like, let it go, man. Like,
yeah.
Let's just can we shut this thing down? And then even Superman does try, when he's fighting the engineer and fighting Ultraman, he does say, like, it's not too late for you to change your mind. Like, you don't have to do what he's making you do. I guess we missed this too. We find out that, I don't know if this is a common thing in the comics or a thing that everyone knows, but we find out that Ultraman is a clone of Superman.
So that's the thing. In our first stream after the trailer, I explained that Ultraman is Earth 2's Superman, and so in Earth 2, the main heroes are all bad. So it's Ultraman, Power Woman, and they're all evil. And the reason why they rule, it's essentially, what if the Justice League turned on the Earth and started ruling them? Mm-hmm. That's what happened in Earth 2. And it's funny, in Justice League Earth 2, it's a graphic novel. They basically explain that the evil heroes of Earth 2 always win in their world the way that the Justice League always wins in our world. The worlds just work oppositely. So
gotcha.
And so Ultraman is just an evil Superman.
Yeah.
And so I explained that, and I actually also showed that Ultraman's costume has flavors of the Doomsday costume that he breaks out of when he's punching his way out of the thing.
Okay.
So I knew Ultraman was going to be a clone of Superman because I didn't think they'd go multiverse too early. So I knew that was going to be the case. And then I basically figured that Ultraman will break down and become Bizarro. And that'll be this version's Bizarro because, Bizarro is just a negative Superman. And this guy didn't even talk. So my hopes, because ultimately Superman throws him, or at least knocks him into the black hole and he kind of disappears. My hope is that that clone appears in a different dimension that has the Bizarro world, which is essentially Earth, but it's a cube instead of a sphere. And all of the inhabitants are Bizarros. Like, they're all dumb and everything. So my hope is he crashes on Bizarro World and he's found by basically the Bizarro equivalent of John and Martha Kent. And they raise him, and because all the Bizarros talk that way, that's why he ends up talking backwards and stuff, because he's raised to talk backwards. And then he ends up going back to take on Superman. But he's full Bizarro at that point.
I'd be into that.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I had no idea that was coming. But once you see his mask all tattered, you're like, oh, okay, this must be some reveal. And I'm like, oh, interesting.
Yeah. I knew it was going to be a clone for sure. But yeah, so that was the reveal, and that's how they sort of handle that. Trying to think if there's anything else that we're missing to be spoiled.
I mean, basically what's happening in that last scene as well, like coinciding with everything, is we know that Jimmy's been he at one point dated Eve, and Eve is really into Jimmy. And she's had enough of Lex. He's abusive in all sorts of ways and all that.
And so the whole movie, she's like seemingly vapidly taking selfies.
Yeah. Yeah, and she sends him all these selfies that have all this incriminating evidence in the background.
She's like, I'm sending you the information, and he receives it, and it's just all of her selfies. And he's just like, what the fuck is this? And then upon closer look, it seems that Eve Tessmacher is actually a lot smarter than we thought, because all of her selfies were taking pictures of Lex's plans in the background. And I thought that was a really clever turn. I thought that was a really clever writing turn, personally.
For sure. Yeah. And so like that all is going down, and Lois kind of recognizes what's up. and they put together a piece and they release an article like in the midst of all this craziness. So right when everything's going down, we've got all the, all the news. Michael Ian Black comes back on, and we realize that Lex is, a traitor, that he's been trying to get half of this country, that he basically gave weapons to one of the countries to invade the other, and that he's been framing Superman the whole time. So it's this total flip. It really is where Lex is like, oh no, I'm found out. Even the people that are his underlings had no idea that this was like the ultimate play.
Right.
So it's that's just everything kind of snowballs right against Lex at the very end, and that's kind of how the Daily Planet crew comes into play. We get a couple good laughs from Beck Bennett in Mr. Fantastic ship, where he's like, why don't I have a chair? Stuff like that.
That's the Steve Lombard character, who's really funny. He's the jock of the crew.
So it's cool that even the Perry and of course Jimmy Olsen and what's her name, Cat Grant, she's in there too. So it's cool that they all have a little something to do there. It's a smaller part of the finale, but it ends up working out and sort of coming full circle with the whole using the media to create or destroy an image. And we get some really nice Cat Grant jumping up and down in slow motion moments.
They definitely they made Cat Grant the power girl of this universe right now with the window right here.
Oh, I did not mind that at all. Woof. I was like, this is refreshing too. We get some kissing and some slow motion girls on a trampoline kind of thing.
Jiggle physics.
And really to close things out, what we get, Lois and Superman's like, I'll give you that interview, Lois. They go into a building, they hold each other, he flies up. It's the shot you've seen in the trailer.
They have the kissy.
Lots of kissies with tongue, and Lois says, I love you too. And it's a really sweet, that was the moment where I was like, that was maybe the closest to me tearing up in watching the movie. Honestly, I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I've been going through crushing heartbreak in the last 9 months of my
romantic.
life. But I just thought it was so sweet to see that. And then really what ends up closing out the film entirely is Superman going back to the Fortress of Solitude. The robots have sort of fixed themselves up. And they say, do you want to watch the footage of your parents? It helps soothe you. And what we end up seeing in this circular screen is like all of these moments from his childhood that he can't really remember. They're like when he was so young that he can't remember. So, but it's Ma and Pa Kent raising him. A really sweet way to end the film, and another full circle moment from at the beginning of the movie. He sees his Kryptonian parents, and then being able to watch Ma and Pa Kent to close things out. And he finally knows who he is and where his compass is pointed, and the world knows what he's all about. So I don't know, if you're bitching about this movie, you might be a little too harsh.
Agreed. Yeah,
and I don't like. People are saying in the chat, they're like, you're grown men that like this movie that was made for kids. And it's like, not really made for kids. There are some adult themes going on here, but it is, I would say, family friendly.
Yeah.
I don't know what people want. Do they want R-rated Superman? I don't think I could stand that.
I don't know. We did miss something, though.
What did we miss?
So once Superman finishes everything, he goes back to the fortress. He's interrupted by a visitor. A strange visitor from another world. Who, it turns out, Clark reveals once he goes back and the robots are fixed up a bit, he reveals that he's actually fostering Krypto. And just like I predicted, if I do say so myself, in that first stream, I said, it seems to me, based on the trailer, that Krypto's not Superman's dog. Krypto is Supergirl's dog, and he's just watching her. And I guarantee that Supergirl's going to show up at the end of the movie and take Krypto with her to go into her movie. And lo and behold, who walks into the fortress is not just Supergirl, but a drunk Supergirl, a drunk party Supergirl. Yeah. And she whistles, and Krypto launches at her, and he starts tossing her around and slamming her into the ground. And so we see why he's such a bad dog is because Kara's her name. She lets him be a bad dog, and she just laughs about it. And so it's really funny. And then, like, you know, she's like, okay, thanks for watching him. And she just turns around and leaves. And she's like, later, bitch. And like,
yeah,
so
she calls him
just,
bitch.
but I like that. She's just a drunk, you know, like late teens millennial, essentially, or I guess, you know, not zennial at this point.
Yeah.
And so what I like about that is it gives the Supergirl movie a place for her to start to have an arc. Like, she's this vapid drunkard. He even says, yeah, she can't drink on Earth because, you know, the metabolism of the yellow sun
can't get drunk.
Won't get you drunk. So she has to go to planets with red suns. So she doesn't have powers to metabolize. And so, you know, her whole movie can be the arc of her turning into this, from this vapid drunkard into a responsible, you know, superhero. And I love that.
Yeah.
And we'll get Krypto along the way, and we'll get Jason Momoa as Lobo along the way, and it's going to be fantastic. But at first, her very youthful representation, I did bump up against it a little bit, but honestly, it only took about 20 seconds of me thinking about it to be like, you know what, that actually makes sense. Nowadays, like, that's the Supergirl. Like, because again, she's raised by us. Like, Supergirl was older when she left Krypton. She was actually Kal-El's babysitter, but her rocket veers off course and doesn't actually crash land on Earth until way after Superman has. So, like, she starts off in the comics as his babysitter, but the next time she sees him, he's like 10 years older than her, and the savior of the planet. And so, like, it's a really cool, you know, place to start character wise. So I like the Millie Alcott cameo. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I didn't really expect it because I haven't, you know, paid that much attention to all the lore. I did read somewhere that that Krypto was probably her dog, so I sort of I was like, well, maybe we'll get a little of that. I figured they would mention it, so when he mentioned that it's a foster, I was like, okay, I totally get what he's talking about. And, you know, I guess maybe at that point I'm like, so maybe she'll show up here. But I think as far as like her age and everything goes, I mean, the movie's probably a couple years out. Or is it supposed to be next year, 2026?
No, it's already been shot. Yeah, I think.
Oh, okay, they're all finished with it. Okay, yeah, it's a good. I saw James Gunn said something about these movies are all going to have kind of like a different tone, you know. So it is a good way for them to just have a little bit of a different flavor on the next movie and keep it within this world. So. Yeah, I mean, I want to see, like we were talking about earlier, I do want to see a Superman follow-up that's more focused on Superman, but I do think something with Supergirl could be pretty fun here. And yeah, we'll get that. It's another classic storytelling trope or character arc trope of kind of like the booze hound that figures out that they've truly got a heart of gold and maybe they need to grow the fuck up a little bit. Yeah. So that'll be cool, and that'll lead into whatever comes next for that character, of course. So her calling him bitch, I was like, oh, maybe this is the worst I feel for Superman right now in this moment. But he seems to take it in stride for sure. Yeah.
And then, you know, last but not least, the mid and post-credit sequences are minimal and not at all necessary to sit through. Wait until it hits home video and see it then, because it's just little funny scenes that were taken out of the actual film kind of thing, and it's not necessary at all. But I mean,
it's nothing that teases. It doesn't tease anything. It's just a shot of Superman and Krypto looking at the Earth from the moon or something.
The poster, and then in the post credit scene, it's him and Mr. Terrific.
Yeah,
because
it's kind of
Clark
funny.
is looking at the city that has been stitched back together, and like the building is like slightly off, and he's just like, oh man, you couldn't have. And like Mr. Terrific's like, oh, you want me to do it again? You want me to
tear it apart?
Yeah, you want to
tear it apart and put it back together again? He's like, no, he just like walks off.
He walks off. He's just like, oh,
I'm sorry, man. I didn't mean to bum you out. And Mr. Terrific like kicks a rock, and he's like, I'm such a jerk sometimes.
I thought it was cute. Obviously, it's not substantial, but it's cute.
Yeah, they didn't go the whole route of like, here's the next thing. You know, there's no like, ooh, Batman's going to be in the next movie kind of like reveal like Marvel would have done. But it is a cute moment. Yeah.
So I think that pretty much covers everything worth spoiling, if I'm not mistaken. So, thank you guys very much for watching, and especially if you've made it this far, we greatly appreciate it. Thank you, Davey, for joining me for this.
Of course.
And thank you to all of our patrons for supporting the channel the way that you do. We greatly, greatly appreciate that as well. Until next time, though, I've been Cecil Laird.
And I've been Davey Deathray.
And remember, stay scared.
Stay scared.